booktubers, my name is Lauren, you're watching Dreams, Books, Courage, and today I'm kind of filming in a bit of a different location. Although I'm still filming in front of my bookshelf, as you can see I'm actually sitting in a chair and it's a little bit weird, but I'm enjoying it. I just wanted this video to seem a bit more relaxed, and it's a bit of a different kind of video than what I've done before or what I've seen before, so I thought I should just film it in a different and more comfortable environment. I've decided to do some book recommendations every month. I know last month I did my fall book recommendations and that video got a whole lot of hits, so I assume that you guys really want to be recommended books instead of us just saying things we specifically like about books or things like that. And so I thought you guys might like it if I just recommend a specific topic or section of books, and I thought that might be helpful for you guys to find out maybe what you like to read more. So this month I am doing my books I'm thankful for recommendations, and these are just books that I'm thankful that they exist in different ways, so I'll be telling you about those individual ways whenever I'm talking about the specific books. The way I will be doing my book recommendations is that I'm going to give you 5 books that I've read before and 5 books that I have not yet read. I feel like that's just a unique way to recommend books because on one side you have books that I just know personally that I love, and then we have 5 other books that I know that other people love, and so I'm recommending those books off of what I've heard from other booktubers. If you guys want to join me in these recommendations videos, feel free to, and definitely link your video down below if you do it, because I would just love to hear what you guys have to say on these books and also books that you would recommend. If you're wondering why I'm doing this one on books I'm thankful for, it's due to the fact that in the United States it's about to be Thanksgiving, and whenever Thanksgiving comes around a lot of people usually do things that they're thankful for, or they write down things that they're thankful for. And books are obviously something that I'm very thankful for, so I just wanted to name some specific ones. So the first book we're going to be talking about is actually a trilogy, and it is The Hunger Games trilogy by Suzanne Collins. I know a lot of you have either heard of the movie or watched the movie or read the book, something along the lines of that, but this book is totally worth the read. Just on the surface, it's just a beautiful book because it's so action-packed and it has just the right amount of romance in it, but below the surface you can just see all of the amazing things that Suzanne Collins has thought of from a political standpoint. Like, we have this capital who doesn't really care about anything but themselves. They watch this horrible reality TV and they just eat until they get sick and they throw it up, and then they just keep on eating just disgusting and horrible things about the society. And then we have these people that are living in all of these districts, and they're the ones actually doing the work and getting a little reward, and then their children had to be sent off to this horrible game where they kill each other. And we think, wow, that is completely horrible. How could anyone live in that society? And the thing is, a lot of us do live in that society already. This trilogy makes it feel unnerving how much we live in this society, where we do watch this horrible reality TV. And no, kids might not be killing other kids, but this reality TV is also very mind-numbing and doing nothing to further society. And then we do have people who eat so much until they're sick and they keep eating. And it's just horrible because then we have kids in Africa who can barely have anything to eat, and it's just that the world is not granted the same abilities. Suzanne Collins paints this in a beautiful picture and makes it more action-packed and a bit more over-dramatized, but on the surface level you can really see how politically this is attacking the current system of not just the United States or of England, but the entire world. I don't think everyone should just watch the movies of this trilogy, but actually read the books because they're packed with even more than the movies are, although I do admit that the movies are pretty good and I'm super excited for Mockingjay Part 1, but these books are so amazing, and I think they're also life-changing because they just make you look at the world in a different perspective. I'm thankful that these books exist because they just allow young adults to see the world from a political standpoint. Next up, we have a novel that deals with a very different set of issues, and it is Winter Girls by Laurie Halse Anderson. I've not yet had the privilege to read this book, but I've heard amazing things about all of Laurie Halse Anderson's works and how they just deal with very difficult issues. This one deals with the anorexia, specifically of these 2 girls. They compete to be the skinniest of the 2, and they are already super skinny, and finally one of them passes away from it. The other one has to deal with this issue and also figure out what she's supposed to do now, and it's just all about her battle with anorexia. Whenever I first saw this book, I wasn't sure whether or not I should pick it up. It just seems like a very deep novel, but I'm glad I did, even though I have not yet read it yet, because this cover is beautiful and I just feel like the story inside of it will be even more beautiful. Although stories like this might be a bit hard to deal with because of the topics that they handle, it's definitely worth your time to read topics like this. I'm thankful for this novel and also for this author because she just deals with such deep issues that I feel like not enough authors are writing about right now. And so I'm just glad that we have an author like Laurie Halse Anderson who writes about things like anorexia, depression, and PTSD. Just very important topics, and then she deals with them in a young adult setting. Next up, we have the series of Percy, Jackson, and the Olympians by Rick Riordan. The reason why I'm thankful for this series and also the other series of Rick Riordan is because they deal with mythology. This series handles more of the Greek mythology, and the Gods of Olympus series handles more of the Roman mythology. And you might think, yeah, mythology is cool and everything, it's no big deal, but it is a big deal whenever it comes to education. The things you learn in these novels, you will deal with later on in school. And it's amazing how Rick Riordan can instill these lessons into your brain, and it really affects your education. Whenever we did the mythology chapter in my English class, I knew at least half of the myths in it because of the Percy Jackson and the Olympians series. Riordan really increases your education while you delve into these amazing worlds of mythology and just awesome, awesome characters. These books are action-packed and definitely worth the read. The next book I don't currently own, but I definitely will in the upcoming years, and it is I Am Malala by Malala Yousafzai. I'm not really sure how to say her last name, but she has just made such a huge impact on the world. She comes from the Middle East, and in the Middle East a lot of times they do not believe in education whatsoever, especially not the education of women. Malala was placed in a very difficult situation whenever she was riding the bus home from school, and the Taliban actually attacked their bus, and she stood up for her classmates and education, and then she got shot in the head because of it. And obviously this seems like a scenario where she would obviously die, but she miraculously recovered and went on to just be an amazing spokesperson for education, and she is my age on top of it all, which is absolutely astounding. The reason I'm thankful for this book is that people like this exist. People like this that are teenagers exist, and that is just an amazing thing, especially whenever they are fighting for education. I feel like that's a good amount of what we do on BookTube as well, because by reading you gain education, and so I'm definitely proud of Malala's fight. I want to read this autobiography because of the impact she has made on the world already, and I want to see her views on education and just how strong of a person that I know she is. The next book that I have read is The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini, and this book is amazing. At first, I didn't really care to read it very much. It just wasn't really my cup of tea. Again, this one deals with the Middle East, and that's not really something that I want to read about particularly, but I did it for a book club, and I ended up loving this book so much. It deals with very harsh issues. I'm going to be linking my book discussion on this book, so then you can learn a bit more about it if you want to. But it starts off in Afghanistan, and it deals with this boy named Amir and just following his journey through Afghanistan and then his journey through the United States, and it just comes with a lot of heartache and horrible situations. And this book is very deep and a bit hard to get through just because of how intense it is, but you will definitely be thankful after you finish this book. I'm not going to talk too much about this book just because I have a whole review on it, so if you want to learn more about this book, then just watch that down below. I'm just thankful for this book because it sheds a light on Afghanistan that definitely needs a light to be shed on. You don't really understand the other side of this argument because of 9/11. Americans feel so heartbroken due to Afghanistan, and they get very afraid of Middle East people. But then these Afghans have even worse lives than we can ever imagine because they are the ones that are being controlled by the Taliban and just evil forces such as that. I'm thankful for this book because it paints the other side of a picture that we have not yet seen. Next up, we have a book on a bit of a lighter note, and it is William Shakespeare's Star Wars by Ian Doescher. And you're probably wondering why I would put this book on this list whenever I have such intense reads on this list, but I feel like we should definitely have a lighthearted read on this, and also I'm very thankful for this book as well, although I have not yet read it. Most people either know about Star Wars or have watched all of the movies. I've seen all of the movies, although I don't remember exactly what they're over. I am thankful for this series of books because it paints William Shakespeare's words in a different light. William Shakespeare is a huge influence on our language and our culture and our vernacular, and yet so many people do not read any of his plays, and that is really sad. But I feel like they get to know Shakespeare's works a bit better if they read even William Shakespeare's Star Wars by a different author. The way Ian Doescher articulates the series is beautiful, and it really seems like Shakespeare wrote Star Wars, which is really hilarious, and I'm just glad the series exists because of it. Next up, we have The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. There are a couple of reasons why I'm so thankful for this book. One is because we got to see Anne Frank's writing even as a teenager, because she's just so smart and funny, and the way she writes is beautiful, and I wish we would have gotten to see more of her writing. The other reason is because you don't really understand World War II directly until you see it from a little girl's perspective and just how it really affects these people individually whenever the Nazis attacked these very innocent Jewish people. I'm glad this book exists and that I read it because it's really hard to understand how these people are personally affected and just what their lives were like and what they had to go through. But within this setting, within this diary, you can really see it from a very personal perspective. Next up, we have some more books that I have not yet read, and it is The Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. And the reason I include this on the list is because it is these fairy tales that are portrayed in very different ways. I just feel like because we grew up with these fairy tales and how Disney portrays them isn't very true to an actual story, but the Lunar Chronicles deals with these stories in very different ways and more complex problems and just all of the awesomeness that comes with it. Although I have not yet started the series, I definitely want to because they just portray some of my beloved fairy tales in these ways that are just so different from the stories that I remember, but yet they're so alike. And I just love the fact that Marissa Meyer decided to write these fairy tales in very beautiful but also very complex ways. This next book is one of my all-time favorites, and it is The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. Before this novel was published, I feel like there were a lot of cancer stories, but they weren't very realistic, and they just painted this beautiful picture of these dying people in a very picturesque environment, and that's not really true to any cancer patient ever. Green tackles cancer in a very complex setting by adding romance and just also the hard lives that these characters truly lead. In other cancer books, you don't really get the feeling for these actual characters, you just see their lives and how they're very angelic characters, when obviously that is not true. And the reason why I love this novel so much is that these teenagers with cancer are just normal people. John Green doesn't make it seem like they're completely different or they lead these weird lives that are completely unlike our own. They're people just like us, and there's nothing different about them besides the fact that they're inflicted with cancer. I feel like what all these cancer books really needed was a sense of normalcy, and John Green gave it to Augustus and Hazel. And the final book we have is Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. The reason why I'm including this novel is because it's all about these firemen who are supposed to burn any book they ever see. If there's one book found in your house, then your entire house will be burned down, and I just cannot imagine living like that. Although I have not yet read this novel, I know it's important and I know I'm thankful for it because it just shows how important books are to our education. Obviously, I love to read books, and this is like the antithesis of a world that I would want to live in. This would be like my worst nightmare. Books are just such an important part of education, and we don't really understand that because we have so many of them in such abundance, but if they were all taken away from us, we could just see our education deteriorating and how little we actually know without sources like books. Books are such an important part of everyone's lives, whether or not you read books all the time or whether you barely read them. Books have definitely played a huge role in your development and your education, and such important parts of our world come from these novels. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I would love for you to link your video if you do a recommendations video like this one down below. And also tell me down below what book you are most thankful for. I'll see you guys next time. I'm gonna go get back to reading.